Hello, Facebook world. Hello, YouTube world. Joey Ragona here. We are in for another treat of Marketing Made Easy. I've got my friend Scott Vogel in the green room as always. And like you and like myself and everybody joining, we are so excited to have him here because this is going to be an excellent episode. We're talking about the Cub marketing or the Cub copywriting strategy. And from what I understand, it's going to be a revelation for him as well. And I just can't wait to hear what he has to say about this. And that's him. As you can hear all that echo right back to us. So we know he's live. Let me bring him in the house, my friend and longtime friend. We've been friends for now, what, 2 years, 3 years has it been? It's been a while, right?
Long time.
I can't even remember now. It just goes by, and we talk to each other a lot during the week, and look forward to days like this, Tuesday nights, where we could share our wisdom with the world.
About a friendship and stuff. This is episode 65, and this is all about the Cub system. So let's get right into it tonight.
We will get right into it, but I really wanted to welcome you here and thank you for being here. I know you do all your stuff. Your yogas, and you make time for us and make time for the world to share your wisdom. You've been a copywriter now for how long?
Oh gosh, I've been writing copy, Joey, for the better part of 35 years.
Yeah,
easily. Started with just writing postcards for my seminars and faxes and direct mail and letters, and then it was writing books and seminar workshops, and it's been 35 years and studying everything that I ever could get my hands on, from way back in the pioneer days of this internet thing when everybody was selling ebooks, and that was the big thing. And I remember buying ebooks and printing them out and putting them in like loose leaves, like I did with the Ragona.
Who's that dude?
Who's that dude? That's all I would do. And I've got, like, in a shed somewhere in another house, all of these things. Yannick Silver's Instant Sales Letters and Terry Dean stuff and Maddox and all of them, the original guys back then. When that's all it was ebooks, because that's really was the thing back then. And then it just kept evolving into everything. And now it's this massive opportunity in so many different arenas. It's not like there is like, well, you got an ebook and that was pretty much it.
Yeah.
Now you could say today that I want to go get into the online world, and you've got such a plethora of opportunities. You don't get to use that word often, to decide what it is that you want to do. Is it ebooks? Is it podcasts? Is it videos? Is it lives? Is it courses? Is it masterminds? Is it coaching? The list goes on of the available opportunities depending on your target audience, depending on who your market is and what they want to consume.
Right.
My upsell for the launch of our software is a letter. Why? Because my audience will read it. If I was going after a certain audience, it would probably be a video, a short one. So, hi, Netta. Netta says hi I saw her appear in YouTube first, then Facebook.
Nice. Hi, Netta. Hey, Monica. Good to see you. Thank you. It is the best Tuesday evenings. I love having everybody here. The tribe is here. Petra's here. You're on YouTube tonight. All right. Thank you so much. Getting some YouTube views tonight. Thank you so much. And everybody else
here on YouTube. Yay.
And if, by the way, if I can't see, if I bring you up here, all you have to do, please, is click the link in the post where it says I'm broadcasting on StreamYard, and it'll allow me to see your name, or you'll give StreamYard the ability to broadcast your name, because I'd love to give you some props as well. Whoever
so Joey,
this is.
That's Connie Willis, who's got Joey.
Nice. Joey.
Joey. I wonder if there's a squeal in that.
No, it's more of the Italian, yo, Joey. Yo, Joey.
Oh. Okay, so Joey, how about we get into what we're talking about tonight?
We will.
That you've welcomed me.
Are you, so we're talking about the Cub strategy or the Cub system. Are you familiar with that, with editing copy?
I am not familiar with that system.
Okay, cool.
And yes, Lorna wants to know. She's on the wall. It's Lorna. Can you see who I am? Yes, we can.
No, I can't. I can't see you here. When it's through StreamYard, we can't see you, but Scott's monitoring on Facebook, so he's seeing a different stream than I am.
She's showing up on Facebook, and she's on YouTube, but as a blank avatar.
Yeah, you just have to give us the permission to broadcast your name. Just click on that link. Sometimes it doesn't work with StreamYard. It's not a perfect science, but hey, we'll deal with it. Okay, so
Joey, share with us what the Cub system is, if you would.
Okay, this is a system where, a lot of people who want to create copy that sells, there's a whole bunch of different ways of editing the copy. You and I do a lot of editing of copy. And so this system actually comes from Michael Masterson, who works with, and I think he still does, with Agora Financial. Agora is one of the biggest financial, or is maybe the biggest financial newsletters in the world, some of the best copywriters in the world. And this is where I learned it from, was from Michael Masterson. This is just one of them. And this is really how to edit copy. And how you do this is, I'll just put it up on screen here because I've already made a little thingy here. It's about looking at the confusing copy, looking about the unbelievable copy, and the boring copy. So when you're analyzing your copy, this is what you want to take out. Like, you want to take out anything that's confusing, anything you want that's unbelievable. You want to prove that, which you talk a lot about. You talk a lot about, hey, prove every single word in this thing, right? So I figured this would be a really good topic for you to jump in on. And the boring stuff. And you see, this is where, at least with the people that I'm working with in Right Marketing Copy, or even in the VIP areas, or a lot of people bring their sales copy to me in the letters, and I'm looking at them. And one of the questions is, when do I stop talking about certain things, or where's the balance? How much do I put in of this? How much do I put in of that? And I just figured that this would be a really good topic to talk about, because I see a lot of confusing copy. I don't know about you, but I see a lot of confusing, and I see a lot of boring copy, right? Where it's just on and on and on and on about whatever it is, and there's not getting to the point. Like, there's a certain point where you say, okay, I've already done enough of this piece, move on, like, get to the next piece. So that is the Cub system. Where do you want to interject and start talking about anything? Any insights or ideas?
Well, what we're doing here, Joey, is...
Good to see you, Glenn.
We're narrowing it down to a small piece of this. And yeah, I look at copy all the time. I'm writing copy all the time. I'm writing offers. I'm writing sales letters. I'm writing VSL. I'm looking at websites. I'm looking at lead magnets. I'm looking at gifts. I'm looking at different elements. And everything is about the copy. And this is just a small piece. And I equate this to the why test. Why are you saying this? And anything, I read somebody's copy the other day, and I said, you need to put this through the Flesch-Kincaid test. And the Flesch-Kincaid test, as you know, determines at what level are you writing at. And so that's going to fit into the confusing piece, because actually I think Netta posted a really great post today. And I wrote something I wrote it intentionally, like Netta's post, which basically it came in at like grade level 27, which was, PhD times 15. It was so insane that it was so confusing. And a lot of copy is confusing because they're bringing in industry language. They're bringing in their vernacular, which people don't understand.
Yeah.
And so the confusing thing is, the confused mind does nothing other than click the X at the top right. They're gone. Because as soon as they're confused, they're like, I'm confused. I'm an idiot. You've made me feel like an idiot. I'm out of here.
Right.
So,
well, here's the thing, too, just for 1 second there, Scott, that I want to bring this up, that, the reader, right? Let's just pretend it's just all about the sales page for a second. Or actually it is. It's about sales page, emails, whatever. They're looking for an excuse to trash the thing anyway. Like they're looking for a way to get out. They're looking for a way to, this is not for me. So if you've already done that, if you're starting to confuse them even more, right? They're looking for that X button. I just wanted to make sure that, or interject here and make sure that everybody knows that, because people don't want to read your stuff. They do, because you've got this nice headline at the top that says, hey, I can promise you this thing, but they're still looking for a way out. I don't want to read all this thing. Your job as a copywriter is to make it so compelling, so interesting, not over the top, which is, we'll talk about the unbelievable thing too, but it's like it has to flow, like the slippery slope, the slippery slide. Joseph Sugarman, I think, is the one, or who came up with that one. I can't remember who it was, but anyway, right? It's just this, the copy just slides through and brings the reader in, starting with the headline. But now what we're talking about here is the body copy, right? We're not talking about the lead copy. We're not the opening copy, which is the lead. 200 to 400 words is basically the lead copy, and the headline. We're not talking about that. We're saying, if you've done a great job there, fantastic. But now we're getting into the copy itself.
So, I'm going to stay with confusing now. And we've talked a lot about this, is having a 12-year-old, sixth grader read your copies.
Right.
And if they don't understand it, then the copy's no good. Well, but my audience is PhDs.
Right.
My audience are professors, and it doesn't matter who they are, what they are. It has to be written so simple. I remember many years ago, my CFO, he was married to my former wife, so he's my second ex-husband-in-law. We can figure that one out at another time. Anyway, the cat ran away, and he wrote a flyer to put up on the telephone poles, and it basically said missing cat, black with white on the nose and a handful or an armful. That was it. It was not confusing at all. Okay, the cat's missing. It's black with white on its nose, and it's a handful. It's an armful. And it was like, that's great copy. It wasn't confusing. And most people put things in copy that shouldn't belong.
Right.
And it confuses the reader.
Right. Very cool. I wanted to answer this from Team. She saw the awareness video yesterday. Should that be taken into the Cub process? If one missed the awareness level, one will miss out on the Cub too. The awareness level is where you're entering the conversation, and it has to do, I guess you can apply the Cub all the way across. It's all copy. So if it doesn't make sense, if it's too confusing for anybody at the level of where they're entering the conversation with you, then yeah, you can apply the Cub process. This is where you edit every single piece of copy. And this could be a simple email. It could be, like Scott said, a flyer looking for a cat, right? If it's confusing, if it's boring, if it's unbelievable, then take it out. And one of the things I want to add to this is the way that they do this at Agora is they do an editing process. They're using the Cub process, and and this is why I said anybody could do this. So you don't have to have a big company, you don't have to be a writer, nothing like that. When you're writing it, what you do is you send it out to people, or you give it to people, and you tell them, listen, I want you to go through this and be brutally honest. And mark it out. What are the confusing parts to you? What are the parts that are unbelievable to you? And what is boring? Just let me know. And I'm just take no offense to it. And you get other people to read it, because that's who's going to read it as other people, right? And they will give you back that feedback, and that's when you make the edits. So it's not something that copywriters have to do. It's the other people. It's your market.
In the book, Joe, you and I have been talking about 57 Big Ideas by Ken McCarthy.
Yep.
In Club, he talked about that. And here, where I don't remember who it was, but he would, and I don't know who it was. It was one of the old school dudes, and he said that he would take his copy and then read it to clerks in the grocery store.
Oh yeah, like Gary Halber used to do that.
Okay,
Yeah.
again, that's what I said. One of the
Yeah.
it was taking it to somebody who knows absolutely nothing about what you do,
Right.
and let them read it. And too many pieces of copy I see, I was like, okay, well, I got to get it out. No, you don't. You got to get it right.
Yeah.
And it's confusion. We talk about that in the continuity piece. When you've spent time, effort, energy, and you get somebody to get to your sales page or your landing page or whatever piece of copy it is, or you get them to open the email and they read it, and if it's confusing, they're gone. Another one of the tests that I like to put in is every single statement you make in any of your copy, you need to ask yourself why. And because the reader's going to say, why did you just say that? And if it's not explained, if it's confusing, they're going to be like, I'm out of here because I don't believe you. That's where the unbelievable piece in the you comes in. It's unbelievable. I don't believe what you're saying. You're full of crap.
Yeah, the unbelievable things is where you're making, claims or whatever it is, and if you can't back that up, then they're going to be like, this is full of crap. You're just a marketer. It's whatever. And so you really got to be careful of when you're making claim statements of whatever it is. So make sure you can back that up. But I just want to answer a couple of questions here, and then we'll move on. Where did you see the awareness video part of copywriting? It's not. It could be in. I've got a couple videos out all over the place. I don't know where you've seen it, team. If you could maybe mention where you saw it. Was it in the Strategic Marketing Club members area, or was it in the Facebook group? If you could just verify where you saw that awareness video. It might even be on my YouTube channel. I don't know. So Monica, maybe team will be able to answer that for us. Netta, my problem is being too far ahead, forgetting what it's like to be a beginner. Yeah, that's the curse of knowledge is huge for us, Netta.
Yeah.
And I have to relay my avatar's words, not my own. Otherwise, we're all in the cub. Like, believe me, we all, I don't know about Scott. He's like 1,000 times better a copywriter than I am. But for me, I'm in cub all the time. And so when I look at my copy, then one of the things that I like to do as well is not only look at, okay, is this confusing? How can I simplify this? I don't make a lot of claims to the unbelievable part, but I still study that part of it too. And boring. Is this really boring? Do I really need to say that word or this line? And that brings me to one of the tricks that I use in my brain where I'm paying $100 for every single word that's in that email or whatever. And if I had to pay that, do I really need that word in there? And that's where it helps me take away the boring piece of it.
Well, yeah, it's every word needs to earn its place.
Yeah.
If not, then it doesn't belong. Another part of the confusing part is the flow. And one of the things to be aware of is when you're editing your copy, a lot of people will spend a lot of time up at the top because that's where they start. And they'll go be editing it and editing it. And by the time they get down to the bottom, they're like, I'm tired of editing.
Yeah, just put in the price. Here's the call to action. Yeah.
I'm done here.
But that's where all the decision is made, right down there.
Right. So you've got to go all the way through. And you got to start from the beginning again.
Yeah.
And go through it. And even after the last piece of copy that I wrote, I think I've edited it 18 times easily. And that was the piece that I also played with you with.
Right.
Because why? I want another set of eyes on it. I want somebody else who understands copy to look at it. And even after we finished it, Joey, I went through it and I said, you know what? That doesn't flow. That's an important piece of the flow. Does it naturally go from this to this to this to this, or is it like, wait a second, where'd that come from?
Yeah, you bring up a really good point, because even when I'm teaching people in the right marketing copy, and I'm telling them at the ugly first draft piece, which is like just throw it in there and just start writing things like that. I always tell them, I go, look, you're going to have 4 or 5 drafts in this process we're doing, And every single time you come back to that draft, you need to read it. You need to read it from top to bottom, because when you step away, whether it's an hour or a day or 2 days, whatever, you're going to get a different mindset. You're going to come back to it with different eyes. And it's a very important piece that you just said there, Scott, that you have to read it. You have to continuously read it. And that flow will pop out if it doesn't make any sense. If it's confusing, you're going from one topic to another and it doesn't have that segue the right way. Yeah, that's the confusing part, and you'll lose people. Another thing that I like to do with people is watch them read it. Give them the copy and watch them read it out loud. And then wherever they get stuck, I know there's a problem. And I'm just taking notes, or it's on Zoom, it's even better because I can record it, right? And I'm like, okay, well, they stopped there, and I don't interrupt them. Like I don't say, well, why did you stop there? Just go. And I'm just making notes where they stop, what happened, why did they read that twice, right? And that points out the confusing parts or whatever it is they're looking for. Or they may even ask a question. What does this mean? Don't worry about it. Just keep going. Like I don't even answer the question.
Yeah, and Joey, confusing could even, it doesn't necessarily have to be confusing as in comprehension. It could be confusing as the inability to read a sentence that might have a C and a K one after the other. Kitchen cutlery,
yeah,
king. Like, that might sound cute as an alliteration, but if it doesn't flow off the tongue, and I'm real fortunate because in the software company, my developer partner is also voiceover talent. So I'll write a script, we'll edit the living daylights out of it, but then when he goes to read it, it's a little bit different. That's why the aloud piece is so important, because after I have edited, then at the end, I start to read it. Like, I just did 41 tutorials for our software, and I wrote the scripts out in detail. And then it read great until I started to read them out loud.
Right.
And it was like, that just didn't sound right, or that didn't flow right. And if it's not going to flow right from you, then it's certainly not going to flow right if the reader is stumbling. And you're absolutely right. Watching somebody else read your copy on Zoom and following along with them and making notes and seeing, okay, where did they stumble? And I do the same thing. I read my copy with somebody else as they're reading it as well. And it's a back and forth piece. And it doesn't matter who. And I think it's really important to find somebody that knows absolutely nothing about your thing. It kind of goes back to Brian Pinvidic, the 3-minute rule of, okay, you just read the copy. Tell me what you just read.
Yeah.
Sum it up for me. And if they get it right, you're like, I'm pretty close. But if they're like, that's not what I wrote, that's not what it meant, you're like, okay, that's confusing in some way, shape, or form. And you really, another piece of the confusing part, Joey, it comes with, I think, the overwhelm, which is not part of the CUB, but it could fit under confusing. It could fit under boring. Is the second I look at copy that is longer than 3 sentences in a paragraph, I'm done. It's too much work. The mind gets confused when it looks at long paragraphs.
Yeah.
Because the mind says, I got to read all that.
Right.
I don't want to read. I read enough in school. I'm writing a piece of copy now where somebody's end goal is they have to take this very complicated exam. And one of their biggest pain points is, I don't want to go back to school. I spent all those years getting out of school so that I didn't have to do it again. And it's the same thing for a reader, is they don't want to have to read long paragraphs that are confusing and boring.
Well, even when we looked at your copy, right, we edited it down, and what do? We put in a lot of bullet stuff, right? Because there was a lot of things happening through the paragraphs, excuse me, and we just made it visually more appealing. so that you could scan through, and made more sub headlines that told the story of what is it that I'm going to learn in this little chunk of text, just making it more visual, like you're right.
So, Joey, that is huge. Is bullets are easier to read than a sentence.
Yeah.
And if you can get the key message of a paragraph or a sentence into a couple of bullets, and you forced me to do that, was taking that and saying, okay, bullet. And that page is virtually all bullets.
Yeah.
Why? Because somebody's just going to scan down it. They're going to look at the stuff, get to the bottom, and then decide, am I going to go read it? That's how people read in this day and age. That's how we're taught to read, is to scan. And if you scan and see what easy flows, consume, that it's not confusing, that they can just go, oh yeah, okay. So
I like Meadow because you're right, exactly that. Two sentences max. I might have 3 sentences, depends on how long it goes. But yeah, I very short sentences. Mine are very punchy all the time. Anytime there is an and or something like that, as soon as there is an and, I'm questioning whether that needs to be there or a period. And usually I'll replace an and with a period. And even though, like, it, the grammar and all the stuff that we taught in English, which I've totally forgot about now, which is great. It totally goes against all of the rules, but it's very punchy. It's very right to the point, and you can easily read it and scan. It's not boring. I hope, but I think that it's not boring.
Long copy becomes boring. Doesn't matter how incredible it is. And by long copy, I'm not talking about a long sales letter, because if I need to sell a $20,000, $50,000, $100,000 product or program, that's a big lift. I've got a heavy duty job to do.
Yeah.
My 18 steps are going to be 18 pages probably. Whereas if I'm just selling a $98 thing, I might be able to get away with 18 sentences or 18 bullets or a series of, depending on what I have to accomplish. So we brought up bullets and keeping it flowing. In the 3-line rule, I try not to go more than 2, if 3. And Netta says, I'm also learning to play with font size for key phrases. Another piece about that is the, the eye test. And not the I, like we, the eye test. 4 feet away from it. Whatever your device is, get 4 feet away from it. A lot of people will use 10, 11 point, 14 point.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Something at least 14 point.
Yeah.
Because it's easier to read.
My emails are all 16 point for sure. And like, I've never played with the font size inside of the paragraph itself. I play with, headings. So like when I write my emails, as you know, the emails are formatted. I don't see anybody really doing this unless, I've never really seen anybody doing this. So I'm going to take credit for it, which is their miniature sales pages in my emails. They're formatted that way. So it's easy to scan. You still got the heading. It doesn't look like a newsletter, but it's not a normal, like just text email. And here's one of the reasons why I don't worry about the paragraph, like line thingies, because as you know, most of my stuff is one line, right? Most of my stuff is one line stuff. So I like to have, when I'm doing a little bit more of a paragraph, the 3 lines breaks it up even more. Because if you see one line, like that's boring as hell there. And you're like, it's even worse than having like, and then the 2 lines may not be enough of a break for me. So sometimes that's why I don't worry about going to 3, and even 4 sometimes, because it'll break that monotony, because I'm always one line. But that's just me. I'm not saying it's a rule. So just a little bit of an idea to maybe help anybody else. What'd you say here?
There are times, Joey, when we need to use a few lines to make the point if we can defend it. And I always that's one of my biggest things. Defend it. Defend what you just said here.
Oh, yeah.
Is this here?
Yeah. You know what? A cool thing about if you're doing a longer paragraph, what I'll do sometimes as well is break up the paragraph with ellipses, right? And then even have spaces around the ellipses. So it'll, dot, and then instead of a dot, 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 it'll be a space, dot, 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 space. And then, so it just breaks it up, but it's still in the same paragraph to keep that.
I do it all the time in the club. I use ellipses all the time. Why? Because a comma is just a short pause, where an ellipses is, okay, there's a little bit more pause here.
Yeah.
And it means, okay, pay attention, read on, kind of stop here for a second to separate my thoughts. It's how I talk.
Right.
It's the same thing when you hear somebody speaking and using and-ums. They're uncomfortable with silence. Writing is kind of a similar way.
Yeah.
Is the periods, the commas, the exclamation points, the ellipses, the spaces, the paragraphs are designed to enable people to consume comfortably your copy, your message, without like, oh my God, I'm going to have to read all that. We look at web pages all the time. We look at copy all the time. And it gets too confusing for the mind. Forget about the structure and the grammar, but just the mind looking at it and saying, oh my God, I got to read all that?
Yeah.
If I look at an email from somebody I know and it's like that, I'll just email them back and say, no, chunk it out. Chunk it out. Make it in chunks. And the chunk could be 1, 3, 2. 1. It doesn't have to be
right.
1. There's the book we talk about, Lee Child wrote, Jack Reacher, one of his characters, and I've read it. And then there's the other one, the post office one.
Yeah.
And they're great books to show how to really write the copy. And I think what happens a lot is it becomes boring when we're trying to write academically, which I think maybe Faith mentioned something earlier about, or when we're trying to educate them too much.
Yeah, we're trying to show how educated we are, or how professional we can speak, or whatever it is, or how much knowledge we have. And that's not the whole point. The whole point is is helping them. They don't have the time. They're already distracted in this world. So even if they do understand it, they don't want to think about it. Like if you make your reader think, that's one of the worst. That's one of the big no-nos in my world. At least, like, don't make them think. And we think that, well, I'm talking down to them, or I'm making them, they're stupid if I talk this way. No, it's not. You're just giving them a break, so they don't have to think about it. You're giving them everything that you're basically serving them the gift. Here it is. Here it's all laid out, just like you do even on your thank you pages or whatever. Here's what you're going to get. Here's what's going to happen. Here's what you spell it out. You're not dumbifying it. You're saying, look, I'm just going to make it easy for you. Here's what you're going to look for, because people are way too distracted. And if you distract them or give them the chance to be distracted on your sales page, you've already lost. So make it very easy. And that's where the confusing part comes in. That's where the boring part comes in. And I want to talk about the boring piece for 1 second, because I know that what is your thought on like the balance between, when you stop talking about something? So in other words, let's talk about the pain. You want to talk about, you understand their pain. And if you follow any of the stuff we talk about, we have a whole copy bank, 78 million pages of pain things, right, that we could talk about.
Right.
How much do we use? And when do we stop?
Not a lot of it. Like, for example, I just was out to dinner last night writing some copy, and I've got a whole list of pain. And I've taken the pain words and I put it, and I've got about 15 or 20 of them, and I'm not going to use all those.
Right.
Because you don't need to go into it.
Why?
You need to go into, what's that?
Why?
Because it's going to become boring.
Right.
And then it's going to become like, okay, enough is enough.
Yeah, and
I've got this pain.
Exactly. Okay, that's what I wanted to bring out. It's that piece where you have to understand that they're thinking, dude, like, I get you, you get me, and I don't want to hear this anymore. Enough is enough. A big example of this is like you're telling somebody about cancer, right? You've got this thing and you're like, so you've done it. And they're like, I don't need to hear it anymore. Just
Right.
tell me what the solution thing is, right? Like you have to understand, when to stop pulling and pushing the knife.
Well, Joey, it's like in the formula that I like to use, that I learned from Perry Belcher, the 18 steps, where I start out with the call out, and then I've got the grabber, and then I've got the promise, and then I've got the subhead. And now that happens in 3 or 4 sentences, done. Then I go the transition there, and it's into the pain and the enemy. And a lot of times there's 3 questions. Are you frustrated with this? Are you struggling with this? Are you just pulling your hair out because of this? I see a lot of times people just keep going.
Right.
And there's like 7 questions, and it's like enough. A couple of questions. And look, are you frustrated? I know that there's 3 major pain points in the software, but I kind of play with 1 or 2 of them, not all 3. Occasionally I'll play with 3, but it's the 2 because they know it. And maybe later on I'll allude to it. But a laundry list gets boring and it pisses people off.
Yeah, and so like you again brought up another great point, because when, at least the way that I approach it, and people, because I get these questions asked all the time inside the course, right? And like, how much a pain do I need? Like, a lot of people are looking for the formula, like how much of this, how much of that, like what's the ratios and all this, right? And so I approach it first of all from just reading it. Like, look, like if, like you said, if there's like 10 questions at the beginning of it that's all about pain, like that's boring to me. Enough is enough. But what I call it is the copy roller coaster. So I like to bring people up, here's a pain, and here's a solution, but hang on a minute, and then wait a second. Oh, there's still, there's some good stuff happening here, right? So I call it the copy roller coaster, where like I'm coming back to it. So and it goes even the other way. You could start out with a whole bunch of positives, and then it becomes unbelievable, right? It's like, holy crap, like, right. Like, I don't believe this. This goes in the trash bin now. Thank you very much, right?
Yeah. Well, and that the unbelievable is a huge piece. That's the why test. That to me is the most important test in copy, and that goes to unbelievable. Because when I read copy, I always ask why. And the reader is always going to ask, why did you just say that? You just said, like, for example, imagine. Everybody is told to use future casting and future pacing. Imagine you're climbing on top of Mount Kilimanjaro, and all of a sudden the storm comes in and you're unprepared. And they're like, are you kidding me? I won't even climb a hill. That's too much like work for me. So you got to be careful with the whole imagine piece, because your dream is not their dream. Well, imagine that you're free to go whitewater rafting in the Colorados. And you're like, well, I don't like the water. I'm gone. So it has to be something that they're going to say, yeah, I can imagine that.
Mm-hmm.
So like, for example, the piece I'm writing now, I can easily say, you already went to school. You already spent all that time studying. The 99.9% of the target audience went to school, and they know what it's like to study and have to cram and fail a test. I don't have to come up with anything major. They all can relate to that. So it's bringing the playing field down where it's kind of, yeah, I get that. I can relate to that. And that's confusion, unbelievable. You take that out of there where people can say, yeah, that's right. I get that.
Right.
Simple things that everybody can relate to in copy makes it even easier.
Right. Yeah. And I remember that like an unbelievable claim is kind of where we are, unless you've made up something that has never been taught before or something like this. But a lot of claims are like that, where it's this has never been discovered before, or it's a brand new thing, but it's really not. And so you need to really look at it from the prospect's point of view, where they're thinking, yeah, you're full of crap. Like, this has never been discovered, the cure for this has never been discovered, or this weight loss thing you have has never been taught before, and right, like whatever it is. So you have to really be careful when you say stuff like that, and it very well could be something that's never been done before, or that if there is an element of unbelievability, then it's like, how can you back it up? Aside from that, you've discovered the secret, that you found the missing gold or the magic key that everybody's been looking for. There's another way to do it.
Well, that's what Perry Belcher calls the Blackie story.
Okay.
The connection story. That's where one of two ways. It was the turning point. It was the pivot. It was the crossroad. It was the defining moment when everything changed for me. Long ago, I was this, and I couldn't do this, and I struggled with this and that and that. And you're like, yeah, just like me. Then one day this happened. That's the turning point, the crossroad. And that's an interesting story. Or let me tell you what happened to me. One day, this and that, and I met this dude named Joey. And, we were at a bar together, and he went, no.
Don't go there.
But, I was hanging out with Joey and this and that, and all of a sudden he told me about this club formula that he had. And I was like, holy crap, that was amazing. And then something happened, and Joey decided to get out of the business, and Joey and his family moved to New Zealand, out in the country, and he just wanted to raise goats and sheep, and he didn't want to have anything to do with the internet world anymore. But you know what? I spent 2 days with him. He told me everything that you could possibly want to know about marketing, and I'm going to share it with you. Now that's kind of a Blackie story, because guess what? You can't go find Joey. You can't go get this information. I got this information. Now, is there marketing information out there? Yeah. But the way I was able to frame it was I learned this system from this.
Yeah, it's the system. So you're right. Like when you're talking about, you brought up club marketing framework, right? That is not anything that is revolutionary. It's my system. However, when I share it with people, it's like the components are all out there as their own thing, right? So omnipresence, or whatever you want to call, all the little things are all out there. And so if I say to somebody, I've discovered this brand new marketing thing that has never, ever, ever been done before, it's BS. It's like, what do you, like, dude, like I've heard all this before. What it is this is a combination of things that have never really been put in this framework before, and it's mine. So this is why it works, but you've done all these other this is why your marketing hasn't worked before, because you've tried this thing and that hasn't worked. But actually, when I combine these other three things in that make up the club marketing framework, that's what makes this all work. So it's like they don't believe it if I said, this is the best marketing system that's never been taught before, which is a claim, and they're like, right, the BS meter goes right to 100. But then even if you did say that and you back it up, here's why I'm saying this. This is the reason why. Then that's the unbelievable part. You're kind of backing up that claim.
It reminds me of a hamburger.
The club marketing system reminds you of a hamburger?
Yeah.
It's a club.
Think about the best hamburger you've
I know, I'm only messing with you, man.
No, seriously, because a hamburger's a hamburger, right? No. What if that hamburger is prepared in a certain amazing, incredible way with some secret ingredients and sauces and spices, and the way it's prepared, and not only that, but then what's on top of it, and what they do to the bun, and what they do to the pickles, and the caramelized onions, and the Gouda blue cheese smoked thingy, sauce, jalapeno, crispy shallot combination thingy, that when you bite into it, it's this explosion of flavors, like, oh my God. You didn't say I invented the hamburger. You say I just made the hamburger a hell of a lot better based on what I know is going to be amazing.
Yeah.
Another piece, going back to the unbelievable, is the I'm just like you. I see that used a lot. I was just like you. No, you weren't. I was just like you, and I struggled with, no, you weren't. Because even if you were just like me, you're not just like me. And I want to just caution people of using that, because what they're trying to do is make the connection.
Yeah, it's
And
the bond thingy.
What's that?
It's the whole bonding that, the quick bond. I was like you. Here's my rags to riches story. Now I can show you the way.
Right.
Yeah.
You can say that without saying those words.
Right.
That becomes unbelievable. The second you say, I'm just like you, I'm like, no, you're not. That's a bunch of crap. You're not like me.
Yeah.
Maybe you've had some experiences like me. Maybe you've had some frustrations and struggles like me, but you're not just like me.
What about I was like you?
No. Here's what happened. Here's what my life was like. Maybe you experienced that as well. It was like a line in the copy that I wrote that says, last time you watched a good movie, you felt emotions and feelings and you didn't know why. And you said,
Yeah.
You added a word, one word, probably.
Yeah. And why did we do that?
Because of exactly what we're talking about. I'm telling you that the last time you watched a movie, you felt emotions.
You're insinuating it, right?
I was insinuating it because you could say, no, I didn't.
Right.
I don't feel emotions. I didn't have emotions and feelings. I just laughed. Well, that's an emotion and feeling. But now I'm into a battle instead of you probably experienced.
Right. Yeah. So here's the thing. So if you're talking about, if you're saying I was like you, or I was, so, okay, I can see your point. What if you said, and the person's going to call BS if they say I was like you, and they're like, no, you weren't. But it's about a situation where, like, let's say a general situation where I was poor. Like,
Right.
Okay, so then you could say that, can't you?
Well, okay, I was poor, yes, but I didn't say I was like you. There's a difference. If I said, I once was poor, you've heard me say I had a desperation funnel years back. I ran out of money. I leveraged my credit cards. I hired an expensive coach, and I built the desperation funnel. And it
Okay. So what happens if, you were desperate for money? Let's say the copy says, and this might suck, but it might say, if you feel desperate for money, whatever, we're not writing copy here. If you feel desperate for money, I know exactly how you feel because I was there too. And here's the thing.
That's different.
Okay.
Because you set the premise first. If you're struggling for money, yeah, I'm struggling for money. I know how that feels. I was struggling for money at one point.
So if you said, if you were struggling for money, I was exactly like you.
I struggled also. Maybe like you. I'd be real careful.
Yeah, I know. I'm just pushing the envelope here. I know exactly what you're saying. I know. I agree with you. For the benefit of everybody listening, I just want to.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just that's such an important piece in the copy.
Yeah.
Because it is the bonding, it is the connection story, it is the transformation that you're showing that you want them to say, I was just like that too.
Yeah.
I was there as well. And because you don't want to say, yeah, you're probably poor like I was.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with Scott as well.
Poor, but I leveraged out every credit card. I had this desperation funnel. I was out of money. I had no idea what I was going to do.
Yeah.
I was in a really bad situation. You may be able to relate to this. And then they're saying, yeah, I can relate to this. And Monica agrees with me. Therefore, the show is over. I can leave now.
Leave on a high note. The George Costanza move.
George Costanza. That's it. I'm out of here.
It's so true. We're talking today. If you have any questions about your copy, or you want to maybe give us an idea of what you're writing, maybe we can help you, or ask a question about the Cubs system. Let me bring that back up. So anybody joining us right now.
A line of copy, a piece of copy, an idea of copy, a copy of copy.
ask a question about copy, whatever it is, or maybe just about your business. Doesn't matter. Join in the conversation. We'd love to help you. We're talking about the Cub.
Joey,
Sorry?
that's a beautiful color purple you've chosen to use for the Cub system.
Thank you.
I just thought I would give you some accolades on your selection of color.
Appreciate you.
Because purple is all about royalty.
Appreciate you. Well, yeah, cool. Thank you. We're talking about the Cub system, which is how to edit your own copy. If you're going through your own copy and you see anything that is confusing, that is unbelievable, where you're making a claim that we were just talking a little bit about there, and anything that's boring, especially anything that's boring, you need to get rid of it. Anything confusing, I'll just get rid of it. And the easiest way to do this, to edit your own copy, is let somebody else read it and let them mark it out and say, this is confusing. This is unbelievable. I don't believe this, or what is all this about, or the boring pieces. Let them mark it out. Get a couple people to write it. Give it to them in a Word document or whatever. Let them put on the tracking changes thingy and let them mark it up, or give them on a piece of paper with a red marker and let them just go crazy. Give them this formula. Say, I'm looking for these pieces. Don't hold back. It's all good. And then what you do with that is you either cut it down, like really cut it down, or cut it out. Get rid of it. Like Scott is saying, you don't need it there. Defend it. Should I have someone who's not, let me see. This is a good question, Scott.
I can't see nothing.
What do you mean? You should be able to see it on the Facebooks, no?
I don't know why, but I haven't seen anything in 45 minutes.
Okay. So Ned is asking, should I have someone who's not my perfect client read my sales page copy? Well,
Yes.
Okay. There are two answers to this. Yes
What?
and no.
Yes. Yes.
Yes and no. There are
Yes and no.
Right. There's
Correct.
two questions.
I said yes to your no.
Oh, sorry. So there's yes and no. So it all depends,
Yes,
Netta, on.
when I said yes to your no.
We're talking over each other. What did you just say?
I said yes. You said no. I said yes to your no.
Right. Cool. So we're on the same page.
Good. Yes.
So Netta, it all depends on what piece or what kind of feedback you're looking for. If it's someone who you want to know if they're compelled to buy, yes, definitely someone who is in your market who understands that. You can also give it to people who are your friends, and they can project themselves into your copy, right? But if they have no desire at all or no anything to do with it, and it's about, will you buy this thing? If you read this thing, does it, compel you to read and go through and buy this thing? Then definitely have somebody who is connected to the market. If it's what we're talking about here, then it doesn't have to be.
See, Joey, my take on that is both yes and no. And the yes is, it goes back to the 3-minute rule. If at the end of them reading your copy, could they go to somebody? Could they be at a party and somebody be talking about X, Y, and Z and say, you know what? Ned has got this thing that will help you exactly.
Yeah.
They're not the target audience, but the ability, it's kind of like you and I talk about a mission statement, why I feel it's so important, because if the world knows what you do, if people around you know what they do, then when somebody in a group is looking for specifically something and I say, oh, Joey does that, or Jody does that, or Aunt does that, or this one does that, it's because I know exactly what it is you do, because I understand your stuff, I've read your copy, and I know the pain and the benefit. So by giving it to somebody that doesn't know anything and say, well, what did you just read? And if they can say, well, it seems that people with this situation,
yeah, I agree.
do this there, but definitely you want it to see if it resonates with your audience.
Yes, that's what I mean. That's why I said it's more like it's both on that side. If you want somebody just to know, well, aside from what you just said, you brought up a really great point on the other piece is if somebody who has no idea what it is and you read it, can you tell me what this is about? That's a really good point. The other one is where they're just reading it to see whether it's confusing, it's boring, all that stuff. So that's where depends on what kind of feedback you're looking for. And you just added a great piece there. I wrote a piece for a card, had my husband read it, like you guys said, and just seeing his dull look made me tear it apart. That's awesome. Slept over it, crossed out 80%, and took some of the things from the 20%, did a 5 bullet points instead, and boom, it worked. Brilliant.
There you go.
Brilliant.
She just summed up the whole session tonight. Thank you, Monica.
That is so brilliant. And Netta knows, people know that you do sugar. That's awesome, because that's what you're known for.
So,
you're interviewing. Okay.
It happens all the time. Netta can help you cut sugar. Ha ha. I like it.
Hopefully you're using that. I mean, that is better than reducing sugar, cut sugar. Yeah, cut sugar. I like that. That's really cool. So we're talking about the club, and then we bring that back up for anybody joining us right now. We're talking about the Cub system that I learned from Michael Masterson. Just blanked for a second. Michael Masterson's, right, who works for Agora, one of the greatest copywriters in the world, trains copywriters all over the place. This is one of the methods that he uses to edit his copy and teach other people to use it. So I figured I'd share it with everybody else. And this is a great way to edit your own copy. And we are talking about the main body copy. We're not talking about the lead copy, and we're not talking about the headline at all, because I mean that's one of the most important things. And here's the thing, just off topic here for a second, Scott, but like there's different, I guess, mindsets around writing headlines or when you should write headlines. When do you write headlines? Do you do that first, or do you do it like after?
After.
Right. Why do you do it after?
Well, because my headlines and subheadlines are going to be based on a summary of what's beneath it. And after I've written the entire sales letter, that headline is going to pretty much summarize what that is all about, and
right.
What is the main pain or the main benefit, and who should read this, because the headline's job is to get them to read the next line.
Right.
And so until I know what the next line is, I mean, I will write a headline to start out with.
Okay.
And like the piece of copy I'm writing now, that the name of the program I haven't even come up with yet. The headline, it hasn't even come yet. The subheads are really as you scan through it, because people are going to scan through, and I want that headline to say, this is why you should read what's underneath here. This is why you should check out these bullets, because it's a summary of what's going on. It's like a subject line in an email. I usually won't write that until the email's done.
Right.
And really makes a great point there.
Yeah.
Boring, it's easy to spot, whether you're the target audience or not.
Right. For sure. You know, I agree with you with the headline as well, because, you know, I do the same thing as you do. I just put a filler headline in there or something like that to get started or whatever. But I remember distinctly there was one copy that I wrote that I did this process with, and somebody read it with me. I was reading it on Zoom and everything. Our friend Eddie, right? We were going through, and I came up with this subhead that was, I don't know, 3/4 of the page down, and it was a really good subhead. And he kept reading, and he kept going back to that. He's like, "This is really, really good," and that turned into the headline. Because I'm like, why the hell am I wasting this brilliant thing down here when it should be up there? And he wasn't the only one who liked it, but it was, people would stop on that because of the way, I can forget what it was now, but the way it was worded, and it was all wordsmithed and the big idea and all that kind of stuff in the subhead, where it was like, that's the selling piece of the whole thing. So I agree with you that when you're writing, that your idea comes from the copy itself. And it could be the simplest thing, because you're so stuck on getting that headline right, is flush out everything you need to do, and more than likely your headline will come from that copy.
Write 100 headlines.
Well, that's why I'm going after. See, that's what's been taught. So people will just start writing headlines. and they won't do what we're saying. So it's like
Right.
they're being thrown this information, and what I want to really help other people understand, or anybody watching the way that at least we approach it, is a mixture of all this stuff, right? It's not just one thing. It's like flushing things out. Because if you just go, well, I'm just going to start, somebody told me I'm going to start with headlines, I'm going to write 100 headlines. Meanwhile, you've got no copy at all whatsoever. You just wasted a whole bunch of hours writing 100 headlines that are probably useless, in my mind.
That's why I waste 30 seconds to get 387 headlines.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so Lorna says, well, Kelly says, let's see.
No, I'm in Monica. We're on Monica. I've definitely been in the confusing and boring part way too much, but not the unbelievable, since I can't stand that. Cool. You and me both.
Yep.
Lorna, my headlines often first show up in the last 1/3 of the copy. Isn't that so true? Because you're in the flow, right? When you're starting to write copy and you're really into it and you start flowing, you just, everything comes out. And yeah, it's really cool how it comes out. Confusing may depend upon one's understanding of the subject. Yeah, exactly. That's one part of it. But another part of it is just the wording, the way that you were describing it. There's too many words. It's the way it's written is confusing.
Yeah, because, again, you could take a very complicated subject. Nanotechnology is confusing to most people. But if you understand that there's 3 basics of it, 1, 2, 3, then you're on your way to understanding it.
Yeah.
Now, it was like nanotechnology involves the integration of the subcutaneous cellular systems that integrate and interact with then it's confusing. So you could pretty much take any topic and make it.
You simplify it.
Yeah, I simplify.
You simplify it. Like even like a simple example, Scott, too, like a confusing sentence or a confusing paragraph might be where, and I've seen this a lot too, where somebody will use a lot of numbers and a combination of word numbers and actual numbers, but there's so many of them. There's like 5, 6, 10 numbers trying to get across the point of like what they're trying to say. That's confusing. So it's like take out the numbers and you've got a couple of numbers in there, but then you don't need all the other ones. So that's what I mean by confusing. I wish I had a better concrete example, but you know what I'm saying, right? Like there's just way too many numbers.
There's 3,816 ways that you can program a system, which requires 18 different processes. Each of those 18 processes has 47 different sub-processes.
Yeah.
And then if you combine that with the algorithm that also has 6,000, then it's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Instead of, there's approximately 87,000 different processes that go on in this thing. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And people 45 to 50 are better, like just like, the technical wizards will understand this rather than saying, technical industry 45-year-olds to 60-year-olds will understand the 187,000 processes that are in this 386 Intel chip that blah, blah. Dude, just say, listen, Intel has just made a new chip that technological people will love because it has 187,000 processes. Done. Right?
Done.
We don't need it.
Yeah.
So, I wrote 25 plus headlines, and at first it's sloggy, and then things fall into place. All the good stuff flows. Awesome. That's awesome.
So it's the same thing with writing bullets.
Yeah. It's
So it's like the law of specificity.
Yeah.
Where if you could build a website in 15 minutes and make $10 a day. That's simple. Somebody could say, okay, I could build a website in 30 minutes and make, $15 in a day. Okay, so if I spent 2 hours, I could build 4 websites and make $60. Now the mind is able to do their own math. I don't have to tell them all that they can do. They can figure it out. That's where you get them to convince themselves of the value of it. That's a really important piece in writing copy, is let people come to the decision on their own.
Well, okay, to that point though, when I'm comparing, when there's I do this on the big number more than anything. So it's whatever, it's $1 million or $10,000 for coaching, whatever, right? And
you charge $1 million for coaching?
It's $10,000 for coaching, and then I'm gonna reply to you. So it's like I break it down for them, so they don't have to do that math. So it's like, and it gets down to, look, it's less than a McDonald's thing a day, right? So I don't want them to do that math on their own. I don't want them to figure that out.
Price juxtaposition is what you're doing. It's less than a maple latte.
Yeah, but so to your point, it's even the other way would work too. So if you have whatever, you did your website thing, and you said, look, it's $15. You can make $15 spending half an hour. That's amazing. Imagine if you spend 5 hours, you could make this much money. So you jump right to the bigger. Oh, that's cool. So then they could figure all the other one out. But I would still add it. I would still give them that other point. Like, it's only half an hour.
Oh no, Joey, we'll have to test that one day.
Yeah, I would definitely spell it out more for them. I like making it very easy for people.
I'll tell you what. In a few months, I'll create a product that has a similarity to that. It'll be something to the effect of you can create this number of videos in this number of minutes and sell them for this much with this thing. And then we'll write another one that says, now you can create this. Now imagine if you created this many, and we'll split test them.
Okay.
But you're gonna do it in Drive Cart, not me.
Oh my gosh. All right, my friend. I think we nailed it with the Cub system. I'll just put up there for the people who are just joining us. Thanks for just joining us, and thanks for everybody who spent a little bit of their Tuesday night or Tuesday morning, afternoon, whatever it was for you. We appreciate you. Thank you so much. We love you, and we're here every single Tuesday talking about marketing made easy, all kinds of stuff. Doesn't have to be only about copy. We can talk about almost anything, even including rocket science that Scott likes to talk about a lot. So anything you talk about, anything you bring up, we could basically bounce in and have a conversation with you. So thank you for being here, my friend, as always. And thank you for watching us. Thank you for on the replay. Morning, whoever that was is morning. Well, thank you for being here in the morning. I appreciate you. So thank you for being here. And if you have a comment, if you're watching the replay, put it in the comments. I am always looking at them and responding back to them. So thank you so much. See you again next Tuesday night.